Am I doing that? Yes. Let me just double check that. All right. So just because of the COVID and everything that we've gone through, we're still allowed to meet remotely until April 1st. Currently, I have Alan Greenberg, Vice Chairman, Tom Fickner as Board of Health member. Andy is not on right now. I anticipate him attending. So, Alan, if you want to open up the meeting, go right ahead.
Okay, first on the agenda, I don't have it printed in front of me, Missy.
That's okay. So I would just take it a little out of order right this time. The first thing I had was review of your FY23 budget and then discuss septic inspections. But since Steve is here, I would probably go ahead with that. And then I know Tom Ryder said he would try to pop on, but he's had a lot going on, as you know.
Right.
So he's not really sure whether or not he'll attend tonight.
All right. So I'm going to say, Steve, obviously, we have you here to help us with our health inspections. Just for the fact that we're recording, maybe introduce yourself for recording purposes, please.
I'm Steve Donatelli. I'm currently a Title V agent in the towns of Uxbridge, Northbridge, Douglas, Sutton, Oxford, and Blackstone. And I'm also a partial agent for the town of Millville. I've been in the field working locally for a private firm for 38 years and working for the municipal positions for the last little over 2 years.
All right, thank you very much. And do you think that you'd be able to find time in your schedule to help us out?
I do. I can work it into my schedule. I spend the day running around. I got a good schedule, so I'm sure I could fit in any work that needs to be done for the town.
Okay. Have you worked for us in the past, Steve?
I have not.
Okay. Any fee schedule that you have for us?
I do. I had sent emailed Missy my fee schedule and a proposed contract with a fee schedule on it in the past year. Those fees would still be suitable for now. I don't know if that's something that Missy forwarded to anybody else, but is this something you would like me to individually go over? What I have for a fee schedule right now, or
no? I don't think that's necessary. I mean, I as the newest member on the board, even though I'm in my third term, have heard your name in the past, and I do remember you submitting some sort of a fee schedule. Our only issue is making sure that our fees cover your fees.
Yes.
So, I'm glad that you have availability for us. And as long as what we're charging is going to cover you, I see, no issues. When would you be available to start?
I could start immediately.
Okay. So, any other pieces of interest that you care to share with us? Maybe the firm that you currently work for?
I currently work for myself. I'm a subcontractor.
Okay.
So in the past, my previous employment, I worked locally with Mendon for Shea Engineering for 38 years.
Okay.
So a private end, I
That's
was
what
designing septic systems and to do the inspections on the engineering private end of the scope.
Okay, very good. That's what I was getting at. So thank you very much for mentioning that. So I guess really it's just a matter of us making sure that everything is going to shake out. And I appreciate the fact that you are available to jump in immediately. Tom, do you have any questions for Steve? I know you guys were chatting a little bit prior to the meeting.
Yes, you'd missed it. We were talking about, Steve was mentioning that I think in the first year that he comes into a community, he offers a 30% discount on his fee schedule.
We're ready.
Merry Christmas.
Or was that 35? Did I mishear that? No, just kidding. For anyone else who might be on the call, I think we're the only ones on this call, right, Missy?
We are the only four on right now, but it is being recorded so they can put it on the YouTube channel. So.
All right. So for the sake of all you out there who hopefully appreciate my humor, that was a joke. Well, the only thing I know, Steve comes with a lot of experience. He's covers quite a few communities, so all those towns are a lot of similarities to Mendon. The only really question I would probably ask you, Steve, is what's your philosophy when it comes to doing your role and what you do and how you handle clients out there, or residents, if you will.
The residents, I usually don't have a lot of, except for responding to complaints. I usually don't have a lot of interaction with residents. Most of my interactions are with the Board of Health and with contractors and engineers. I deal usually directly with them in scheduling, whether it be a perk test or inspections with the contractors. I usually coordinate that with them directly. That's kind of my philosophy is, I think it's best one-on-one with that as far as scheduling, interacting with them, and making sure the systems are constructed according to the design plans in Title V, and perk tests are performed appropriately. So
thank you. Yeah, I was just going to follow up there. Do you find that it's been your experiences? I know Title V can sometimes be somewhat complicated, and in a lot of cases, there's some gray area that allows for certain latitude, and I think that's probably by design, because you can't cookie cutter these things in every piece of property.
Correct, especially with repairs.
Right.
You have there's leeway with repairs. There's not a lot with new construction. So it's but with repairs there is leeway within Title V. So I take that on a case-by-case basis on the property. It's kind of looking at each individual property as a best case scenario, for that particular property, for what can be done.
Yeah. How do you find the environment out there with regard to contractors in general and the folks that you deal with on this subject?
For the most part, it's very positive.
Yeah.
My dealings with contractors and engineers, there's been very few issues that I really had. There's been a couple over the 2+ years that I've had, but those mainly have been, for the most part, with outside people from not this area.
Right.
They might be familiar with how things might be done in a different part of the state, which is not the way I do it. Generally, we have a way of handling things in central Massachusetts that might be different from people who are working down the Cape, or in Western Mass.
Yeah.
So that's with contractors from that area might just come into these towns for maybe a one-shot deal for whatever reason. I have to handle that more on a hands-on basis, as far as maybe stopping into sites that's being constructed more often, discussing things more detailed with them of how I want things done.
Yeah. So you have no problem, quote unquote, setting somebody straight.
I have not. I've had to do that, so quote unquote, a couple of occasions. For the most part, the contractors, I've dealt with a lot of these same contractors when I was with Shea Engineering, that I deal with now. For the most part,
Right.
Most of these people I was familiar with prior to entering this position I have now, for the municipal end of inspections and what have you. So there are a lot of new faces that I've interacted with. So most of the people, most of the contractors and engineers, mainly contractors, have known me from the past.
And I think that's a big plus, you know, with the experience you've had and the familiarity that you have with all the different groups out there in this area. You obviously kind of have set your presence in such a way so there's a level of expectation I'm sure that they have and the level of expectation you have, and so that's kind of nice. It allows you, I think, to hit the ground running with us anyway from a pretty easy standpoint.
Yeah, and it does, especially with contractors. I mean, when I'm coming to inspect the system, I was inspecting it from a private engineering aspect from a private firm coming, and I'm pretty much wanting those same ways done, performed as far as construction, how things are handled. So it's not new to a lot of these contractors. They know how I like things.
Right.
So,
that's awesome. That's good. Well, you know, I'd be looking forward to seeing you come on board, and I think you'd be a great asset, and help, you know, fill the need that we have. You obviously know Tom Ryder very well.
I do.
So that's a big plus as well. So that's all I have from my end, Mr. Vice Chairman. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
Missy, any questions or points that you want to make?
Yes. Actually, Andy just called me because I sent him a text reminding him about the meeting. He completely forgot. He's in the middle of something. He can't leave. He apologizes for not attending. I told him we would talk in the morning. I just told him that you were talking to Steve right now. I would just say that right now, just to make sure, I just want to make sure that everything is done the right way. I would say that this is quote unquote temporary. Just to make sure that we follow the proper procedures when you're going, because this just kind of just happened. So, and we need someone to help us. So I would just say right now, this is temporary. If I hear from the powers that be next door that says we have to do something a little differently, I will let you guys know, but we needed someone now. So that I would just say that. My question to Steve is, in the other towns, how do you get your inspections? Right now, I would email them to Tom Ryder with the installer's name, their telephone number to call them if there's an issue, and obviously what type of inspection. We also have a thing called a job card now that is supposed to be out on the site. I don't know if any of the other towns do that. It's something we just recently started doing. So that way we can kind of keep track and keep everybody, you know, we know what stages each system or each job is at. So you would sign those cards, and then the installer has to bring it back to me, either when the as-built comes in with the COC or shortly thereafter or before, but I won't release the COC until I get that orange card back. I just didn't know what your thoughts were on that.
Well, I like that. I don't have those in any other towns I have as far as the card's concerned. As far as inspections, in all the other towns, you would, it sounds like that's what you do. Email me with what's the type of activity that would be required. And the other towns usually have a permit number that they give me, so I can coordinate that. So if somebody calls for an inspection, I know that a permit's been taken out for that.
Okay.
So just as long as you email me with knowledge of what is needed, that's basically how the other towns handle that. Just give that, and then I take it from there and interact with the contractors directly.
Okay.
What's required, contractors or engineers.
My other question would be is, as you know, I get a copy of the plan, I scan it and I email it to Tom for his review, his approval and everything. I still have one paper copy. When Tom's approved the plan, do you want me to email you a copy of the plan? Did you want to grab the plan that's in here so you know what's going on the sites? How do you handle that with the other towns?
Well, all the other towns, I do the reviews, so I keep a copy of the plan myself, a physical copy, and I take it in the field with me. So if you're just having one physical copy of the plan, then if you email me that, I just scaling off the plan, you need a full-size copy to scale from. But that's mainly, most of the time I really utilize a scale is when I'm reviewing the plans.
Okay.
Out in the field, it's not as necessary, a reduced copy, so I could print something out myself if you email me the plan to take in the
Okay.
field.
Okay. I mean, we can do it either way, whatever works better for you. Like you said, you do the reviews, so you know what's going on, or Tom
Yes.
does the reviews. So whatever works best for you will go that way. Tom and Alan, as far as Steve's fee schedule, I'll take a look at that and see if we need to adjust our fees. If we do, we will at your next meeting. I think I think for what we charge, I think you're going to be pretty good. I don't think if you do have to increase anything, I don't think it's going to have to be that much. I really don't. So that's all I have right now. Alan?
Okay. So Missy, if I just want to make sure I understand this correctly, contractors are going to still request inspections through you, and then you're going to contact Steve.
Correct. I like that because when I email it, there's a paper trail. So if someone calls it in to me, I email it off to Tom. Now I'll email it off to Steve, and there's that paper, there's that paper trace, so to speak, trail, so that we can kind of keep track of everything too.
Okay, where Steve is well known in this area, and has a relationship with all the contractors for the most part doing business in this area. I want to make sure we don't have some of the hiccups that we've had in the past where someone will reach out directly to Steve because they can and, request an inspection, and then you're in the dark.
Right. No, they would have to
So-
call into the office. Steve?
Okay.
Yes, I mean,
Just want to make sure.
That's where a permit number comes handy in the other towns. I usually ask them for the permit number, which they wouldn't receive unless they contacted the office and spoke with Missy. I don't know if that's some way of coordinating that. They wouldn't have the correct number, and I'm emailed that permit number, so I know if the contractors give me that correct number, that it's legitimate and they've gone through the office.
And we can do that. We haven't done that in the past, but we can start doing that, and I can let the installers know that they're going to need their permit numbers, because the permit number is on the card, the job card that they get.
Yes. So if they have that, they just need to tell me what the permit number is. So Missy, if you emailed me the job with the permit number,
Sure.
I know I can coordinate that with what they give me, the permit number. It matches up to what you gave me. I know that they've been in contact with you and, prior.
Very good. Alan?
All right. So Missy, is it my understanding that we can act on this, especially where it's temporary at this point?
Yeah, all I would say is I would just say that the board, I know it's just the two of you, so you have a quorum, you can vote on it, just to say that you're going to bring Steve Donatelli on for Title V inspections as a temporary basis until Tom can, things shake out, or, if at some point in time it does work out better, we would just have to make sure we do the proper channels, which will probably be 2 other bids for these kind of services.
Okay, so Tom, if you're comfortable with this temporary situation at this point, if you want to make the motion.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I'll make a motion to bring Steve Donatelli on board, the town amendment, to assist us with Title V inspections as we need.
All right, and I will second that.
All in
All
favor?
righty.
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Steve, Steve,
Thank you very
much. We appreciate your willingness to step in and help us get things lined up again.
I'm happy to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. And I will, if I can get Andy to come in tomorrow, I will ask him to sign the contract on the behalf of the board, and then you can sign it, and then we'll be good to go.
Okay, sounds good, Missy. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Steve.
Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. Good Tom. See you, Alan.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
You too.
Thanks.
Bye now.
Alrighty, with that being said, the next thing would be I would go to your budget, which I emailed you guys earlier today. I did it very quickly because it has to be in, they want it in by December 31st, and I'm out of the office starting noontime next Wednesday. Did you guys get a chance to see the email?
I did not.
have. Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Okay, Alan?
I did not have a chance to pull that up. I've been out of town for a little bit.
Not a problem.
I did not pull that up, but I mean, in the past, I know what your approach is, and obviously it needs to be, approved. So I'm sure everything is in order.
So basically, really, the only two things that I increased, and I might increase trash disposal a little bit more. So currently, for your FY22 budget, you have $140,000 for your for trash disposal. And that covers the cost for obviously the tonnage that's brought up to Wheelabrator, but it also includes the detail officer and your household hazardous waste day too. I think I want to bump it up a little bit more. I might go to 146,000, but I got to have something together to give to them anyways. I know that you guys I've had discussions with you guys individually about the household hazardous waste day and whether or not you will want to expand the hours a little bit more instead of just having it from, was it 9 to 12?
8 to 12.
Yeah.
Maybe having it 8 to 12, the hours that the metal dumpsters open. So that, to give residents a little bit more of opportunity. I did get the bill today because doing the budget reminded me of it, because I still hadn't gotten it, and it was back in August. I did get it. It was $7,000 and change. You were budgeted 12,000. I bumped it up to 14,000. But you guys can talk more about it. Again, I just had to throw this together so I could stop putting numbers in. The other thing that I increased was trash collection. That is your contract with E.L. Harvey. That is going up to about $338,000. That is the last extension with the original contract that you guys signed with them back in 2018. So next year at this time, you will have to decide what you're going to do. If you're going to go out to bid, look at getting another extension with Harvey. But next year would be the year, things might be changing with regards to the recycling and how that cost affects us. So just keep that in mind. Other than that, I pretty much level funded everything else. You're gonna have extra money in your salaries by $5,000 because, at least for this year, because Danielle through the 8-town thing is your animal inspector. So that's a savings, but I don't want to zero that out because we really should be looking for someone to take that position on. But we'll just have to, we'll go with it as it comes. Did you guys have any questions for me?
The only thing that I have is a comment on the hazardous waste day, since we brought that up. The hiccups that we seem to run into, and Tom and I experienced this. One thing is that the actual setup fee seems to be increasing dramatically each year, which covers pretty much just getting them there, not actually the disposal of the hazardous waste that's collected. So I don't know if we need to explore other companies to make sure that we're not being taken advantage of with that fee. The other thing is I would definitely be for expanding the hours. And probably the third thing is, no matter what we do, it still seems as though not enough people feel as though they've been made aware of it. So, you know, I don't know if we need to, if we have the date when one of the trash bills goes out, if we can include the date with that particular trash bill.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of stumped at how we.
The thing with putting in the trash bill, we have done it in the past. But that means I've got to get the bill. If I need the bills to go out the middle of May, that means I've got to put the bills, I have to have the bills ready to go by May 1st, which is still 2 months left of the service because I wiped that slate clean.
Right.
So it's
well, and if we
possible.
don't have the hazardous waste day till August, it's almost like we're giving them too much notice because they're going to forget.
Right. I mean, you know what? Nothing we do will satisfy everybody. It goes, I put it in the town crier. It's on the town's website. I know the town clerk advertises it on her Facebook page. So will Dan. But so
I wonder if, yeah, I wonder if we could borrow the message board and put it in front of the highway barn, you know, weeks before, flashing for everybody that drives by. I don't know.
I don't know if putting it in front of highway would be the answer. It might be putting it either at the intersection of 140 and Cape Road, or putting it at the intersection of 16 and North Ave.
Okay.
Just
I don't
because
know, Tom, any ideas on how we can satisfy some of those issues that we hear our residents talking about on Hazardous Waste Day?
Well, I think use of the message board is a good idea. And, like Missy was indicating, I think, that 16 North Ave is a pretty good spot for it, as opposed to going down to Cape Road. It'd be great if we could, if that's doable, say a week before or a couple weeks before over the course of a week, if we could advertise it. The other thought is, I don't know if even using the sign in Founders Park is an option to advertise it on that sign as well. Then we put it in the crier. We have
the
presence on the internet. What was that, Missy?
About the code red. I mean, I know people get antsy about how that gets used. They only want it for emergencies, but if people are feeling like they're not being notified, and we put it in the crier, we've got it on the website, we've got it on my machine. I don't know if that's an option too.
Well, is the code red only supposed to be specifically designed for an emergency?
I'm not really sure, to be honest with you.
Because I think we've used it before for informational.
Yeah, but like if there's not going to be trash pickup because of a snowstorm, I think we've used that route.
Yeah.
Yep.
The problem is, doesn't it only go out to people that subscribe to it?
Correct.
Right.
It's not the reverse 911.
Well, again, you're always going to have I was going to say, you're always going to have a percentage of people that, either they don't subscribe to that, or they don't read the crier, or they don't do anything on the internet, or, there's always going to be some percentage. I mean, I think the overall, I think Hazardous Waste Day has had really good response. We've had a pretty good number of residents that have come, especially in the last couple of years. I mean,
okay. The other hiccup that we had this last time was we had on the radar, it showed those thunderstorms rolling in. Do we need to get clarification on what would dictate closing it down earlier or canceling it from whatever company we contract with?
Well, I know it's advertised as a rain or shine event. So rain in and of itself is not sufficient enough to stop the event. That's what they've agreed to do. Thunder, lightning, yeah, that would be a variable. I would think that, because they were concerned about that this past year, that could be a problem for them. And I was truly kind of
Right.
goofed when I misrepresented the situation to a couple of folks by indicating rain was the reason we had to close it down a little bit early. In actuality, it was the potential for the thunder lightning band that was being looked at.
Yeah,
But,
it was rather unusual because it was showing on the radar.
right.
So, it just, as crazy as it appeared, it disappeared on us, and we had already made the call, unfortunately. When we figured we were, it was about 30 minutes out because we needed to give them an opportunity to secure things before it hit.
Yes, correct. Yeah, it was just,
So,
that was just, it was a perfect storm, so to speak. It was unfortunate.
It was unfortunate. Yes, I agreed. The other thing, and I'm not on social media, obviously, but Mendon does have that social media page. I don't know if it would be appropriate to put it out on that.
With that the bulletin board, is that what you're talking about, Alan?
Yeah,
Yeah.
The girl that is the administrator lives on Blackstone Street down the bottom.
Correct. See, and I mean, if Alan or if Dan decides to share that with them, or if they find it on Ellen's, or they get the e-subscription from me when I make an announcement on something like that, that's fine. I just want, it's not a town sanctioned site, so to speak. And
Okay.
Daniel's now here. Good evening, Daniel.
Hello, I'm not sure if you can hear me.
We can, yep. So guys, this is Daniel Markman. He is part of, he works with Danielle as a regional inspector, and this is kind of like a meet and greet type of thing that Daniel's here for. So Daniel, if Alan, you don't mind, I'll let Daniel speak if it's okay.
It's perfectly okay. Good evening.
Good evening. A pleasure to meet you. Apologies for being late. My name is Dan Markman. I'm the full-time health inspector and community health educator hired by the Blackstone Valley. So I service Mendon as well as 7 other towns in the community. I've got about 2.5 years of experience, mostly in food, pool, and housing inspections, although I've also done tiny bit of tobacco and septic. And my primary field of expertise is editing and updating regulations. And that's it. That's all I got.
Thank you. As a point of curiosity on my part, where, if someone had similar interests, do you get the proper education to do what you do, or the proper certifications? Where do you go? Thank you.
Not a problem. There's a few resources to get started. To get a baseline understanding of what a health inspector or a health agent would deal with, there is a resource created by Boston University called the Local Public Health Institute. They've got hundreds of little modules. That's where I started while I was getting my master's there. It's free to use for anyone. So that's where you would start. After that, you would want to get certifications in the specific sections that you would be inspecting. So for pool inspections, you would need a certified pool operator's license. For food, you'd start at a food manager's license and allergy awareness certification. And if you wanted to go above and beyond, you could go CPFS. I'm actually a registered environmental health specialist. That's a national certification. Actually covers not just food and pool, but also septic, landfills, body art, a few other miscellaneous areas of expertise, but that one's kind of, I got that one mostly as a wild card. That one's kind of like, it's not necessary, so to speak, to do what I do. Beyond that, the only real education is experience. I started by shadowing inspectors in Westford, and then I was trained for a few months directly by my supervisor at my previous position in Reading. And then from that, it was mostly just getting experience, observing other inspectors when working together with them in other communities, and reviewing the codes and putting them into practice.
Thank you. That's a point of interest for me and Missy, I'm sure. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. And it's nice to hear the road you took to get where you are. And, you know, congratulations at being hired by the collaborative of towns that, you know, have been fortunate enough to access your talents. Tom, any questions?
Well, first of all, I'll say, hey, Dan, welcome to the little town of Mendon.
Thank you.
I know you've only been with us a short time, and something we'll touch on probably shortly. I know you were very helpful in helping us do an initial draft here for dumpster regulations, which we'll be talking about shortly. But what's your experience been so far with us here in Mendon, and what you've seen and whatnot? What's your take?
I mean, I think I've only managed to come to Mendon for about 2 days, and for circumstances beyond everyone's control, there was a power outage the first time I came by. So
nice.
That limited my ability to really engage with the community, just because I can't really do an inspection if everyone had to voluntarily close down while the power was out. So I know Danielle's done a lot more inspections for Mendon since she's worked for them in the past, but my impression is, you know, Mendon's smaller than most of the communities that I'd serviced before, but it seems like they've got like a lot of their regulations are pretty on the ball. I like the structure. Missy's been very helpful. I'm excited to work here.
Awesome. Now, what town do you actually reside in, Dan?
Northbridge is the host community, or are you referring to where I like live, as in my place?
Yeah, where you actually reside yourself.
Oh, Acton in Middlesex County.
Oh, okay, yep. I used to live in Acton many years ago. Okay. And in fact, I still have a motor vehicle that I bought at an Acton auto dealership out that way. Yep, hanging on to a nice 2004 convertible. I don't want to let it go. Yep. Okay. Well, we look forward to having you get your feet wet a little bit further, doing some more tasks. And like I say, when we hit it, I know it's on the agenda for tonight. We have dumpster regulations as one of the topics, so we'll touch on that shortly. But thank you. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Missy?
Well, I have had the opportunity to meet Daniel, and the last time he was in the office, he was very helpful. He is definitely interested in helping us work on our regulations, or like he did for the dumpsters, help us create regulations if we don't have any. And I'm very excited. I'm glad to see people excited about public health and bringing us into a new direction. So I'm very thankful for him and for Danielle. Alan?
Yeah, I guess the only other thing I have to add is please let us know when you plan on being in town again. I would like to meet you, and I'm coming into my slow season. I'm a landscape contractor. That's how I pay the bills. But I would definitely, like to meet you face to face. I've met Danielle briefly. Like to, interact with her more in the future, so that when I happen to see her in town and she doesn't have a name tag on, I recognize her. So, you know, obviously I'd like the relationship to be the same with you. I'd like to, you know, if I see you around, I'd like to be able to say hello and be talking to the right person. So please let us know when you're going to be in town for a period of time in the future, so that we can meet face to face. Is there anything else, Missy? I don't know if Daniel is going to stay on the line for our discussion of what he's written so far.
And Daniel, I think you said you had another meeting you had to go to.
I'm sorry, I missed the last sentence. Something happened with my internet and I got kicked, like partially kicked off the call.
No problem. I just wondering, I think you said you had a meeting at 7 you had to attend to?
At 7, yeah.
Okay.
So
I
I
there
do
anything?
apologize for that.
No worries. Nothing, no worries here. Is there anything else you want to ask the board?
No, and I know that I missed a little bit of it, but I just wanted to address the board's request. Yeah, we'll usually send in our schedule a week in advance. I don't know if we're going to be scheduling for Mendon in the next couple of weeks, just because they're so short. But we will definitely let you folks know in advance if we're going to be coming by.
Thank you very much.
Not a problem. Again, it was a pleasure to meet you, and I'm excited to work with you folks.
Great, same here, Dan.
Go
Thank
get
you very
'em.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Daniel. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I think we now have the delineation on what to use now for the naming. I think we should, Daniel should be Dan, and Danielle can be Danielle, right?
Yeah, I just have to remember when we mix Dan Byer into it, which Dan we're talking about.
Oh, man, now you really threw a monkey wrench into it.
Well, we'll just call him Dan Byer.
He'll be Demand. Demand.
Yeah, there you go. Demand.
Oh,
Missy,
no.
what was Dan's last name? He said it.
Markman?
Markman, yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's what I thought I heard. Okay. All right, so that was some interesting information that he shared with us about Boston University. That might be helpful to me, and might be helpful to you, Missy.
Definitely will be helpful to me. You know, at least I have a better
Yeah, no, I mean,
direction. Thank you.
no, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, what's next on our agenda?
So the two things was discussing the private well regulations and then discussing the possibility of dumpster regulations. Both Tom Ryder was working with us on the well regulations. I haven't gotten any updates since the last time. So if you want, I will resend those to you so you can kind of look them over during the holidays if you can. The other thing was the dumpster regulations. And Dan did help write something up for us if you guys had a chance to look at it. I believe, though, I don't know if you guys want to talk about it with Andy being on board also at the meeting. So it's up to you guys. Alan?
The only question I have, and I meant to ask it at the last meeting and I didn't, was we have dumpsters in town existing at restaurants, convenience stores, gas stations, etc. Will they be covered under these regulations?
I would say yes.
Okay, that would be my sense, where we talk about it's almost like we have to work with the planning board as to where a dumpster is located, whether or not it's going to follow these regulations as far as traffic sight lines. So this is more than just the temporary dumpsters that we seem to be having a problem with. This is more inclusive, correct?
I think it depends if that's the direction you guys want to go. Tom, what do you think?
Well, I'm just taking a look at the draft here that Dan provided.
All right. Well, while you do that, I'll make another point, if I may.
Go ahead.
We were talking about a fee for these dumpsters.
Mm-hmm.
So my next question would be, that fee, is it going to be an annual fee for the dumpsters that are already in place at restaurants, convenience stores, gas stations, etc.,
Mm-hmm.
versus a one-time fee for the homeowner that's going to have some remodeling done and the contractor is going to put a dumpster on that property?
How
Because
do you guys?
right now we're not, like, let's just, take Forefront Automotive over at the Airport Industrial Park. Right
Mhm.
now, we don't inspect their dumpster. We don't charge them for their dumpster as a fee on an annual basis. Is this gonna? I don't want to put a financial burden unnecessarily on these businesses in town, and blindside them, so to speak. So I'm kind of unsure how to approach that, where we've never had anything like that in the past. So like I said, I'm kind of unsure, where initially we were doing this because we were having complaints about people with temporary dumpsters on their property.
Mm-hmm. I would say, but we've
So
also had problems. I guess you'd have to come up with what is your definition of temporary, because we've also gotten complaints over the years from in residential and in commercial areas of permanent dumpsters being in place, and you have debris flying out of them, and things like that, or when you've got a company or home business being run out of a residential area, and that's a permanent dumpster, that we've gotten complaints on where it's been situated and things like that.
Okay, well, and you're right. I think actually Tom experienced what happens when a dumpster that is across the street from you is left open and unattended, and the wind blows.
Right.
If I remember correctly.
That's correct.
The trash was blowing right down Emerson Street. So I agree. I guess I'm unsure of how to apply the fee schedule that we're going to have in order to pay the inspectors to do the inspections, because we already unfortunately experience pushback from trying to get dumpster haulers that occasionally do business in town to pull an awful permit. We've had that problem down the Veterans Hall with, I believe it was Dumpster Divers,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever the company was that was, temporarily putting a dumpster there for construction purposes. So I guess that's going to be kind of an interesting thing to apply, and I'm almost thinking that I'll call them permanent dumpsters that are located at businesses in town right now. I'm wondering if we're going to need to give them more than ample notice so that they can adjust to the new way of doing things.
Yeah, I agree. And as far as the fee schedule, I mean, you guys can set the fees. I'm just going to throw numbers out there, but until you get a better grasp, maybe you only charge an annual fee of $25, and see how that works. And if you notice that it's got to be more than that, because it's taking whoever from the Board of Health to longer to look at a dumpster. I can't imagine it's going to be any more than it can't be more than an hour. And you can always adjust your fee schedules. As far as a permanent, but do you know what I'm saying? As far as a temporary, okay, well, maybe you make
Right,
that
well,
$25.
yeah, I actually think the temporary dumpsters may cause us more grief than the permanent ones. Although the permanent ones, initially, if we're working, I'm going to assume with the planning board, when they're approving a plan for a business to locate in town, there may be some upfront investment as far as making sure the dumpster is located on the plan correctly and whether or not it's fenced in, et cetera, et cetera. We're actually working with them on that before the site is even built. You know, it's just a matter of our inspector putting their eyes on it and, you know, saying, yep, that's a good plan, or no, I think it should go here. If I'm understanding all this correctly.
Tom, what do you think?
Well, you raised an interesting question with, or topic with regard to the planning board. So I guess I would first ask, is that element part of what the planning board does when they're approving site plans? You know, dumpster placement, is that an element that's in their purview?
To my knowledge, all that is drawn on the plan along with the footprint of the building. If there's a, you know, obviously, you know, let's just take Ambro Adjustments for example, only because they're right there in town. I believe even the, you know, the stone wall that retains the septic system was probably, to my limited knowledge, part of the whole plan to put that, to locate that business there, you know, along with, you know, measurements off the, how far off the street you had to be. It probably all enters into planning and zoning. And then, of course, you know, the septic system comes through Board of Health. So I would assume that you can't just do these things. I remember at one point when I believe I had a conversation with someone from planning when Charles Riverbank located where they are now. It was on the plan that they had to repair and extend that stone wall in a certain direction going up North Ave. So, you know, in order to get everything signed off, that was something that had to be completed because it was part of the original plan. And if we're not doing it in Mendon, I'm sure it's being done in other towns. As to, you know, the location of a dumpster, whether or not the dumpster needs to be fenced in, whether it not needs to have a lid, just based on all the regulations that we read. It's got to be on a site plan, and that's, you know, what planning does is approve a site plan. So I'm pretty sure I'm going in the right direction there, Tom.
So we can't say at this particular moment with 100% certainty that this is an element that they factor in when they're doing their planning. We believe, it sounds like that we believe that that's the case, but we're not 100% sure. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I would say I'm not 100% sure, but I'm sure we could get clarification on that with a phone call to the appropriate person.
Oh, absolutely. What it does, the reason I bring it up is I just wonder if it potentially raises any kind of a conflict where if you have, you know, one group like the planning board doing something in their purview, you know, like for example, approving placement of a dumpster, and then we have it in the Board of Health dumpster regulations, the same element. Could we possibly run into a differing of opinion between the two groups?
I would say that's possible, but I would definitely be in favor of letting them know what we're working on. And this sort of goes back to when at one point they were going to have that cabinet commission or whatever they were going to call it, where each board was going to kind of let the other boards in town know what the hot topic was that they were working on, so that if there was some overlap, everybody would be on board, and even the board that was working on the particular topic could get some input from the other boards. Unfortunately, that never came to be. But I would definitely let the planning board and maybe even the zoning board know what we're working on. So if they have anything they want to add, they can. If this is going to cover all dumpsters in town. Again, initially, I thought we were kind of in the direction of trying to put some regulations together for the temporary dumpsters. But as this is evolving and as the regulations are starting to take form, I can see that we're more in the direction of covering all the dumpsters that are located in town, whether they be temporary or permanent. Missy?
I would say that because I'm just looking through some septic plans right now when they propose a commercial lot, and if planning doesn't want to get involved with something like that, we could talk to Tom and see if when the septic plan is submitted, they put a lot of information on these plans with parking lots and, you know, like I'm looking at a proposed repair shop, but they even show that where the waiting area is and this and that. Maybe we should make a requirement when septic plans are submitted on the location of the dumpsters and handle it that way. I don't know. And that way you don't have to worry so much about getting two boards that don't agree. I don't know what you think.
Well, I don't think that we would ever have a situation where we couldn't come to an agreement. It would just be a matter of multiple boards knowing what was going on, so that, let's just say, planning didn't approve something that wasn't going to be in lines with what the Board of Health did. I'm sure we could come to an agreement on something, because on these plans that are approved, especially for commercial sites, there's already multiple boards working together to approve, you know, different things, whether it be, you know, fire and safety, you know, building, etc. So it's just kind of one more piece that the other boards would have to be aware of, so that everything, you know, falls in line the way it's supposed to. If we're going to take and, you know, regulate every dumpster in town, again, which kind of goes beyond where I thought we were originally starting based on the issues we were dealing with and the complaints we were dealing with. I have no problem going in this direction and being more inclusive of all the dumpsters in town. But I just want to be clear for my own understanding what we're regulating. So that's why I was bringing it up, and I was bringing it up, you know, the issue about the fee schedule, where that's going to be something new that existing businesses will experience. Not that I think, you know, we can't explain it and justify it as to, you know, someone actually has to go out and inspect it. Because this goes beyond, you know, dealing with the occasional complaint of, you know, trash blowing, etc. I mean, I experience it on the corner of 16 and Washington Street. Every Tuesday, I experience the trash that blows from the Uxbridge direction towards town. And, you know, some of it's unavoidable, and I'm sure some of it could be avoided if, you know, the dumpster was being taken care of correctly. Tom?
Well, it raises some interesting discussion here. I was just tossing around in my head whether or not we wanted to venture into creating a separation of the types of dumpsters that would fall under our proposed regulations, temporary versus permanent. And if indeed permanent dumpsters currently fall under the purview of the planning board, that gets confirmed in their site planning work and what they do already, would there be an argument for wanting our regulations to be more in line with those groups or those entities that require the use of a temporary dumpster? But at the same token, we know that proper use of any dumpster kind of falls under our purview. So if somebody does indeed get a permanent dumpster and it's approved in the planning process through the planning board, and then down the road, it's found that it's not being utilized properly, they have trash blowing all over the place, and now that becomes a health issue. So that gives the Board of Health, an avenue under which to address, that particular permanent dumpster situation.
Okay, I can, be in line with that. I wonder, Missy, can you tell us if the planning board has a section, or if there's a section somewhere in the planning board rules and regulations that cover dumpsters, or any other department?
I can look into it. I would as far as you're talking permanent commercial, when a new building like the warehouse, if that gets built on Cape Road, do they look at where their dumpsters are going to be located? Correct?
Correct. That's where I'm heading, because they may already have similar rules and regulations that guide them as to whether or not they approve a site plan.
Mm-hmm. Whether or not
they may have nothing.
Right.
They may just, the engineer submits the plan and they look at it and they say, okay, that's where the dumpster is going to be. Okay.
If they even take a look at the,
I don't know.
What I can do is I can reach out to, I think his name is Jack Hunter. He is the temporary planner that they've hired. I can shoot him an email and ask him if he's aware of anything like that and see what he says.
Okay, because if there's something already in existence that involves planning, and I'm saying planning only because in my mind at this point, that would be the first step in a business setting up in town, whether it be an existing building or a new building.
Yep.
Because until the plan is approved, nothing's supposed to be being built or renovated.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm thinking that direction. So, this is a good discussion, because if they already have something in place, then we need to look at it and see how our thoughts line up with what might already be in existence.
Yep.
From a planning standpoint. And if there isn't something in existence at all, we need to most likely let them know what we're thinking and get some input, so that there is no conflict, and so that there is, we're thinking along the same lines. This discussion may improve the direction we're taking, or may change the direction we're taking based on, what we find another board in town, and again, I'm kind of picking on planning right now, thinking that's the beginning steps before anybody does anything physically. Tom?
Yeah, understood. I was just in looking at what Dan provided us as his draft version. I was just wondering, and I don't know if you know Missy, did he do this with the idea that this draft might apply to all dumpsters or just temporary ones? Do you know?
I do not. I had told him, I gave him copies of the regulations that you guys had looked at. I gave him Alan's bullet points and just told him to kind of create something. And that's what he created. Now, you guys can curtail, you guys can structure this any way you want. If you guys feel that you just want to go after the temporary dumpsters, then that's the avenue you go. If you want to do all dumpsters, do you incorporate it into this regulation, or do you have a separate regulations for regular, year-round dumpsters? That's up to you guys.
Well, I think if we're going to have any kind of governance in regard to, both types of dumpsters, whether they're permanent or temporary, I would think we could incorporate it under the same proposed type of draft. I just think we'd have to be just specific in the wording, so that, we have a section that's specific to, say, permanent dumpsters and a section that pertains to temporary dumpsters, so that people can delineate and understand, what we're talking about.
Yep. So if you look at section A, it says a statement of purpose, and that right there, Daniel says he's not sure what you want to put there. So, and there you can make your explanation as to what you're trying to do, I think.
Do you want to hear would you like to hear my draft statement for that?
Absolutely.
So this is what initially, statement of purpose.
Remember, you're being recorded.
Yes, I know. To provide respectful guidance to the use of dumpsters in the town of Mendon, and provide reasonable and respectful guidance to the permitted user.
Yeah, definitely something like that. I think you're in the right direction.
I mean, essentially, the purpose is to, again, I know right off the bat, people aren't going to like, and I could see the battle coming with regard to those who have dumpsters now that are permanent. I can see it coming. And I would understand why, if somebody's had a permanent dumpster in place for 10 years already, all of a sudden the Board of Health creates a new set of regulations and now kind of wants to come along and, some people might look at it, and here's somebody else coming along to step on my toes. So,
or just looking for money.
Well, yeah. So I could see in the case of somebody who already has a permanent dumpster, it's already been, as Alan is kind of leading us to view here, that it may have already been approved by a board here in town, right? Then I wouldn't necessarily be looking to, charge them any fee for that. I mean, it's just a matter of just making sure that it's being operated from a Board of Health standpoint, the way they all should anyway, whether they're temporary or permanent, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and the with regard to the fee structure, now the people doing the inspection of these, this would be somebody like who Dan or Danielle would do this, right?
Yeah, I would say it'd be Dan or Danielle, or a board member.
Okay.
If Danielle, if they're not available and one of you guys are, you pop on by the site and say, looks good to me, that you're good, you're fine. Or no, you're kind of obstructing the view for people pulling out of the street. You need to back it up a little.
Yeah, okay. Now their salaries, they're coming to us, they're covered by, currently their money's covered by the grant, right? This is through COVID?
Correct. This is no, not COVID. It is the inspectional services grant that the state did. This was actually in the works prior to COVID coming.
Right, that's right. Inspectional services grant. Okay. So they're not, when they go to do a task, we send them out to do something. They're not sending us a bill for their service, right?
There's no bill, but we're supposed to have our own inspector. This is supposed to help us. And right now we don't have an inspector.
Oh, no, understood. What I was getting at was, so we talked about, like in conversation with Steve in regard to his fees, his fee schedule. He's going to go out, he's working as a contractor. So when he does a service, he's going to send us a bill.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to make sure that our fee for such services would be in line to cover his invoicing. In this case, this is not going to be an invoiceable situation. Someone's just going to go out and perform a task. We're not going to get a bill for it.
As of right now.
As of right now, correct. So
yeah, okay. I think I know what direction you're going, I think, with this. So it is, as long as we're not going to get billed, you don't have to have a fee right now.
Right. And so this could be a good time because we could get this thing going without necessarily worrying about fees at this particular point in time. Over the next couple of years, get it kind of people aware and understand what's now in place. And then maybe in 3 years or so, if the situation changes money-wise and we have to look to implement a fee, if it becomes a billable situation, by some other person, then we could address it then. But in the meantime, I wouldn't be so concerned about fees at all in this particular issue.
I can understand that. I can,
I would be agreeable. I would be agreeable to attempting to not charge a fee at this time to our permanent dumpsters, because it's likely if we were able to utilize Daniel or Danielle, that maybe in a 4-hour period, once a year, they could go through and make sure everything looks good. However, our temporary dumpsters, that would be spread out over the course of the year. So I would be inclined to implement a fee there, because we may not be able to utilize Danielle or Daniel. We may have to utilize someone like Lenny, let's say, or Steve. And in that case, we would incur a fee. And I think that might be received okay.
Okay, yeah, I see. There's some merit there. For that, I mean, could we envision somebody like one of our contractor people doing this type of support work versus Dan or Danielle? I suppose that's possible, huh? Down the road.
It would be possible, especially if you go ahead and hire a health agent. Then yeah, you would be paying them to go take a look at these things.
Yeah, that's maybe the way to go, Alan.
Well, and the only time we would call our health agent in the future to do a permanent dumpster was if we had a complaint, if we had an issue that maybe we couldn't resolve on our own with the property owner, and we had to bring our health agent in. So that would, that would kind of be a one-shot deal that we would have that expenditure, and maybe we could even pass that fee on to the property owner at that time, in the form of, I don't like to use the word, but as a fine, because we weren't able to work it out, and then we had to address it in a more, we had to escalate it with an inspection because, we couldn't communicate with the property owner to take care of it at our level.
I actually wouldn't want to wait until we had a complaint. I think I'd want to get out. I'd want to have Dan or Danielle hit the ground running. I mean, I like your first draft of how to do it, where we give them a bunch of places to check out, places that we know have permanent dumpsters, and just go there and introduce themselves.
But I guess the situation I'm bringing up is they go out once a year, they do their inspections for us on all our permanent dumpsters, and everything checks out. Well, that doesn't mean 2 weeks or 3 weeks down the road, we might get a complaint about a site. So the site's already been inspected. Now we get a complaint. We, the office, contact the property owner. We got we got a complaint. You guys got to keep that dumpster clean, closed at night. Please, remind your employees, that the dumpsters need to be closed. And, the property owner says, yeah. And 2 weeks later, we get the same complaint because they never really did anything about it, or they did something about it, but they're not keeping at it and keeping at their employees to make sure it's closed. Now we have sort of an isolated situation, even though when we sent our inspectors out 4 or 6 weeks prior and everything checked out and there were no, recommendations or violations. That's why I'm saying that we get to the point where we have to kind of escalate it and bring our health inspector into it. Then we would incur a fee.
Well, it could be Danielle. Right? And Danielle and Dan are both covered under that grant program right now, where we're not going to get a bill.
Right, but Missy, isn't it my understanding we're allotted a certain amount of their time? Because we don't own them, right?
Right. Because they have to split their time between the other 7 towns.
Right. So we could go beyond our time and run into a pinch.
You could, depending. Yep. But you don't have.
I guess that's.
But you don't have anybody that would handle that other than the board themselves, because it's not necessarily something I would probably send Steve or Tom out, because they primarily take care of Title V.
Right.
Correct. So, like I said, I'm going up the line, saying that, all right, so our Danielle or Daniel go out and do our annual. We handle any first level complaints, let's say, if they're not available. But now we have to keep going up because it's not getting any better. So eventually we're going to have to involve a health inspector. And that's when we would have a bill.
If you have a inspector that is billing you.
Right. So I'm planning ahead.
Gotcha.
For the worst case scenario where we can't get anywhere,
Well, unless you handle that by the institution of a fine. So if somebody's not being responsive to a situation, then they're going to get a fine.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I don't see. Sorry. That's the one thing I don't see in this regulation is a fining structure. Again, we don't, the health department is not out there to be heavy-handed for fees, for fining. You want people to comply. You want to educate them. So the a finding structure would be your last resort. You know, you can go out there, slap them on the wrist, blah blah blah. 2 weeks later, you get another complaint. All right, well now we gotta write you up and we're gonna fine you, and you know, and then you'd escalate it somehow that way. I think.
Right. I know the
Agree.
ones that I read from other towns, some of them had a fines schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So they sort of took into account if things potentially escalated. So that's why I'm proposing that and asking that question, putting it out there just in case we think there may be a situation where we get to that level.
Mm-hmm.
Again, what we're looking at that Daniel was nice enough to put together is just a first draft.
Correct.
You know, and it's probably taken, you know, the best out of, you know, all the different regulations that were put in front of us in a very simple form to get us started. So not every situation is going to be covered in there. And as we talked, we need to get something into play. And we know that we may have to visit it on an annual basis and add to it, or we may even find there might be something we have to subtract from it as things go on. But right now, where we have nothing, we need to kind of cover the general things that we think we might run into to get something into play to give some sort of a guideline to people that are using dumpsters.
I would just pose this one question to you guys as far as what do you want the regulations to do? Do you just want temporary dumpster regulations, or do you want the whole thing to include permanent dumpsters throughout the town?
Well, that seems to be potentially a question. I could see us doing both. We would just have to be probably a little bit more specific in wording and guidance so that, you know, the categories are understood. I mean, the usage element, though, as far as proper usage, really should apply to both categories, right? Whether they're temporary or permanent, you still want them properly used,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
I agree.
That's got to be a constant. You know, the placement thing is, you know, somebody could end up putting a dumpster initially somewhere based on what, say, the planning board might have told them, and then they end up moving it without telling the planning board. And then, you know, so you could have a situation like that that could come up.
Well, agreed. Or sometimes they add a dumpster. I have some sites not in Mendon that I take care of that over the years have added a separate dumpster for corrugated cardboard.
Mm-hmm.
So now the original site plan of 30 years ago might have included only one dumpster, and 30 years later, now they have two. So I doubt the site plan was updated. Fortunately, they're being used, in my opinion, correctly, and nothing's blowing around and the whole bit. So the governing body in that particular town may not even be aware, where there's probably never been a complaint, that there are two dumpsters on the property now versus one.
Right.
I know in town I have an account where they changed the size of the dumpster. And that would probably never be detected unless there was a complaint. And again, to my knowledge, the dumpster's being used correctly. So there would probably never be a complaint, and it would never be detected that the size of the dumpster has been changed.
Well,
if there
unless
was an
the
annual
town was
inspection,
doing
then it would
annual
be picked up.
inspections, right? Yeah.
Right.
But that's,
So,
yeah, that onus, that's on the town.
Yeah, based on our discussion thus far, I mean, minus AJ's input, it seems as though we need to define the difference between temporary and permanent. We need to have a discussion, reach out to, I'm going to say the planning board initially. We may find other boards involved and see what they have in their site plan approval process so that we don't conflict or send two separate messages from the same town. And we need to discuss whether or not there's going to be a way of recouping any fees that we may incur in the form of whether or not we charge a fee schedule and how we handle, complaints and or possible fines. If we want to even, get that detailed at this point, that might be something that we want to do a year from now or, 2 years from now even. Because we realize that this will always be a building process. Just the way we, done with some of our other regulations and guidelines. Overall, I'm going to say good discussion, and it brings up some good points. Back to you, Tom or Missy.
Tom?
So basically, at this point, where we don't want to pull the trigger on anything?
That would be my point of view, especially with, not having AJ's input on this draft.
True, yeah, that's the kind of the key element. I think we should have all three of us involved in actually confirming the decision.
Well, that, and we got a little bit of research to do to see what other boards in town have regarding dumpsters, whether they be temporary or permanent already.
Well, I know we have some examples that we've had presented to us. I think Upton was one of them, right, Missy?
Yep.
A couple other towns, Northbridge was one. Reading was one that I think it looks like a lot of this draft actually seems to reflect what we saw out of the town of Reading. But yeah, so it's probably going to be a case where we'll have to kind of get a little specific with the intent.
I also think that statement of purpose is important, because that's going to give the reason why you're creating and what the reason is behind this is.
Agreed. Yep.
All right. So I think, is that enough a discussion on these dumpster regulations for tonight?
I think so.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Like I said, the only thing that I would like some information on, Missy, is what the planning board has regarding dumpsters, if anything.
Yep. Okay.
I mean, they may simply, like I said, just go by whatever the engineer submits. And if that's the case, that's fine, but we probably need to know that.
Yeah, because I can understand that, because if there's something in the planning board rules and regulations or whatever their guidance is, you don't want to contradict that. We've all seen all too many times where you have a Board of Health regulation and a different department's regulation, and they butt heads. They don't go together.
Right.
Right, because like as I read some of this and it mentions fencing or screening, I feel that would be part of a site plan, whether it be for a new or existing commercial property.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're creating a regulation that gives guidance towards the location of the dumpster and the fencing or screening or placement on a concrete pad, etc. I think we're sort of, we could be contradicting a site plan that was already approved.
Correct.
So, like I said, I'd be very curious at this point, what the planning board has that has anything to do with dumpsters. And then from that, we may find other boards that may have some stuff. But I think this is a great draft. And it does mention, even though it doesn't list a fee schedule, it does mention that, a fee could be imposed on an annual basis determined by the Board of Health. So he sort of covered that, even though there's not a fee schedule spelled out. So, I feel it's a good discussion. We need to do that little bit of research, and we need to, visit it at our next meeting with hopefully AJ present.
Speaking of next meeting, that would be something you guys need to do tonight is set your next meeting date, which would be after the first.
Stand by a quick second.
I'm just going to throw out some dates out there.
Okay.
So I come back from vacation on January 3rd, which means I would have to have all the agenda items ready that day to post for January 5th. There's January 12th, 19th, and 26th. Just a heads up, the selectmen will be meeting on the 12th. We may need to attend that. I'm not sure because of the contact tracing grant that we, just like we did for the first one for the inspection services, we got to do the same thing for the grant for the contact tracing collaborative. And so I'm waiting. I think they meet, Lonnie told me, January 12th. So maybe we would try to attend, if that's the date that you guys decide, maybe we would go and meet with the select board, if I can work it out that way, if you guys pick the 12th, and then we would adjourn and then go into our own meeting.
Yeah. Now, would that be a meeting in the selectmen? Would that be in person?
They're doing hybrid, and that's a whole nother other discussion that we'll have when the time comes.
Okay. So are you suggesting that we go there in person?
No, you can do it virtual. It actually depends on how they set up their meeting.
Okay, so we won't know until they make that call.
Right. But I mean, if you guys want to meet on January 5th, you can go right ahead and do that. And the 12th could be just a bonus. It's nothing that's going to take all that much time. It's totally up to you guys. I'm fine with January 5th.
Yeah, don't we usually try to get our 2 in? So if we did the 5th and the 19th.
Yep.
And then we would be meeting the beginning of February again, and we get 2 in.
Yep.
So I know Tom, I think, took another call, but
yep.
I'm gonna say that I'm all for the 5th and the 19th.
Okay. The other thing too is I got an email. Margaret Bacon, she has a septic plan that's been approved by Tom. It's a local upgrade, but it's gotten a butter notification. So I'm going to give her these 2 dates. Because you have to give 14 days notice. So I will email her tomorrow morning with these dates, as long as Tom is good with it too. And then I'll just talk to Andy in the morning.
Yeah, so I would say, based on our conversation at this point, just confirm that these dates work for everybody.
Yep. And when Tom's off,
and, then we'll move forward, and hopefully it will work for everyone involved.
Yep.
Hey, guys, sorry about that. I'm back.
Oh, no problem, Tom. We're talking about the 5th and the 19th of January for meetings, with the possibility of a selectmen's meeting on the 12th regarding contact tracing, if I heard Missy correctly.
Oh, okay. That was fine with me.
So Tom, just so you know, just I think I touched on it briefly before the meeting started. We had the contact tracing ends December 31st with the state. The 8 towns with the inspectional services went out and got a contact tracing grant, which will run from the rest of 2022, and I believe will end fiscal year 2023. It's the same thing that we had to do the last time. Go to the selectmen, let them know, and we'll need a signature from them along with Andy signing as chairman.
Okay.
And talking with Lonnie and Laura actually too, I believe the next selectmen's meeting will be January 12th, but they canceled their meeting tonight, so I'll keep you up. I'll keep you posted on that.
Okay. Very
So
good.
I'll say January 5th and 19th of 2022 at 6 p.m.
Sounds like a plan.
Cool beans.
All righty. That's all I have
right,
for you
Missy.
guys, unless you have anything for me.
Missy, did you say next week you're only in part of the week, or did you say that the holiday is actually going to be for you on Thursday? Clarify next week's work schedule for me.
Sure, absolutely. So for next week, my last day is at 11:30 on Wednesday. The way the holidays are falling, Christmas Eve, we'll observe that on Wednesday. Christmas is on Saturday, so we observe that on Thursday. Then I'm out the following week, and the 30th is the day that we observe New Year's. And just to let you guys know that I have because there's no one going to be available to sell trash stickers that I'm aware of. So last week I posted it on our website as a notification, and I sent it off to anyone who e-subscribes to our notifications and meetings. Gail and I put a note on our door letting people know what our office hours are, and I will be changing my recording here on the telephone here in the office.
Okay, so this all involves the next 2 major holidays.
Correct.
And the way that they fall.
Correct.
Is affecting the office hours. Okay, that's fine. The other question is, since you brought up trash stickers, sales steady, up, down?
I say they're probably on more of a decline right now, if anything. I don't have a lot of people coming in buying them. No, that's not to say that they're not going to the treasurer collector or the town clerk, but it's not widely advertised. So I'm going to say it's on a decline right now.
Okay, now, what about our annual tonnage?
That's going up, I think.
Okay,
I'd have to look at it more, but again,
okay, so maybe for the next meeting?
Yep.
Especially where, we had talks about our budget and, allotting money, where we had increases and where we level funded. So I'd be interested in the direction our tonnage is going in, and I'd be interested in what we're paying per ton right now and how long that fee is going to cover for us.
Let me just real quick.
Don't we have steps?
Yeah, we have steps. I think it's $71 and change is what we're paying per ton right now, but I can quickly look at that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. For the next meeting is fine. Only because these are all things that if we're going to have to go out for bid or whatever our next step is based on our current contract, those are all things that we're going to have to take into consideration.
Yep.
And as always, we're trying to keep it very affordable for our users.
Sure. So just an FYI, your tonnage rate right now is $71.07.
Okay.
But I'll
Any
go
idea how long that holds for?
till June 30th.
Okay, and then it goes to,
Supposed to go to $72 and change, but it's always ends up being lower than what I have a little cheat sheet from when the contract was redone back in
Right.
2016, and that's the number that I go by. Typically, it's always
Right.
been less than what that cheat sheet puts in.
okay, the other thing is that we would have to consider is, I know we've got, I don't know how many more users we're putting online, but we have gone through a, I'll call it a housing boom in town.
Mhm.
So I know that we've talked about the possibility of maybe having to redesign some of the routes and things like that. So in the near future, especially where AJ and I start to have a little more time from our regular jobs, those are things I would like to discuss in the future, just to make sure that we're not caught off guard.
Yeah, I think that would definitely need to be a discussion that you have with Mike to see if they have any changes that they want to do for FY23. Because you still have
Okay, and that
Sylvan
would start
Springs
July
being
1st, right?
that will be your last year of the extension, July 1st.
Okay. Like I said, I just want to be prepared, and make sure that we don't get blindsided. And I know that, unfortunately, some of our surrounding towns, I think it was Millville last that maybe had to discontinue trash pickup for their residents.
Correct.
I don't want to be in that position, so I want to be prepared and kind of have things mapped out. Fortunately, we have a good relationship with Mike and with EL Harvey, and I'd like that to continue. So, like I said, just some things to touch upon so that we're not doing it in the 11th hour.
Yep, I can work on that for you guys.
Thank you.
Anything from you, Tom?
A motion?
One question, totally unrelated to BOH. Anybody know of any good places still that have Christmas trees available?
I don't.
I know a Jewish guy on Blackstone Street that'll sell you a white pine.
Yeah, all right. I'll get his number offline.
There you go. I'm sure it'll be better looking than a Charlie Brown, but.
Well, I'll make a motion then. I'll make a motion,
Alrighty.
we adjourn for the evening.
And I will second it. And I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. In case we don't meet up in the meantime on the street. And it's a pleasure, keeping up with what everybody's families are doing. And it's been a pleasure working with everybody, AJ included.
I agree.
Very nice, ditto.
Good
All
night,
right, you
all.
guys.
Thank you,
Just
good night all.
remember, I will keep you guys posted if I have any more permits to do.
Okay,
All righty. Thanks. I'll
Yep.
see you guys soon.
bye-bye.
Bye.